Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I hope the week has gone well. My piece I wrote yesterday was Welcome to Nairobi, President Emmanuel Macron. The visit by the French President Emmanuel Macron to Kenya is an important signal, not only for its being the first visit by a French head of state to Kenya, but also it speaks to a number of other narrative threads. I wrote a hagiographic piece in December 2016 headlined Emmanuel Macron gives France back its mojo. But you might recall the famous Harold Macmillan response when asked what a prime minister most feared. Events, dear boy, events. President Macron was overtaken by events, in particular the mouvement des Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests, and this tapered some of the enthusiasm. However, the French have always been prone to go to the streets. In the 1990s, when I used to trade the French short end, I can recall Prime Minister Alain Juppé, who similarly tried to reform and reshape the system, but met his match on the street. After all, it was the iconic French philosopher Paul Virilio who said this about the street: the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack, in other words, a producer of speed. Therefore, it's easy to get excited about the French street, but the street is an occupational hazard for any leader in the Élysée Palace. And just like how Macron arm wrestled Trump to a standstill, Macron had to arm wrestle the street in order to establish himself. It's a rite of passage for a French president, like the unheated pool at Mount Kenya Safari Club was my rite of passage. President Macron has appealed directly to the African citizen. I am from a generation for whom Nelson Mandela's victory is one of the best political memories. He has cast himself and is in fact as much a part of the post-colonial Africa as are the overwhelming majority of Africans. The reformatting of France-Afrique is a subject for another day. This first visit of a French president to Kenya speaks to a desire to engage with Anglo-Afrique. The French government has an incredible level of coherence, and the same president who pronounced, "I want France to be a startup nation, a nation that thinks and moves like a startup," has walked and chewed gum at the same time, launched Choose Africa, pledged to invest 2.5 billion euros in Africa by financing and supporting startups and SMEs by 2022. The government, through Choose Africa, would support about 10,000 enterprises across the continent by providing credit, technical support, equity financing, the French Development Agency said in an email statement. Funds will be mobilized via the AFD and Proparco. Macron is on a 3-day trip to Africa to boost trade with Ethiopia, Djibouti and Kenya, said €1 billion was earmarked for equity investment in startups and SMEs. With respect to Kenya in particular, France is the 6th largest investor in Kenya, representing about 10% of direct and indirect commercial interests. Think Lafarge, Danone's investment in Brookside, Total, both up and downstream, big loans into the renewable energy side via AFD and into Kengen and plenty more. Just in the last 24 hours, the president unveiled a locally assembled Peugeot and had President Kenyatta take him for a spin in it. The Peugeot 504 was surely the most iconic car brand of all time in Africa. The president told reporters at a press conference, "We're launching a project for the refurbishment of the rail line from the central station to the airport." Macron added that France plans to invest 3.1 billion euros worth of projects in Kenya once the two countries sign new trade deals on Thursday. Of course, France is present in Djibouti and therefore has a foothold in the Western Indian Ocean, and this is further buttressed by its presence in various Indian Ocean islands, which because of their economic exclusion zones have become highly prized partners. It is clear that France appreciates that the center of geo-economic gravity has shifted and towards the Indian Ocean. The center of gravity was once somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. President Macron, Allez France, once won the Arc de Triomphe for Daniel Wildenstein an eternity ago, is seeking to extend its Africa positioning in order to better project power into this new strategically central geo-economic zone. Welcome to Nairobi, Mr. President. Reuters reporting France seals business deals worth over 2 billion euros. A consortium led by Vinci secured a 30-year concession worth 1.6 billion euros to operate a highway linking Nairobi and the Mau summit. Renewables firm Voltalia sealed a 70 million euro contract for a solar plant, while an Airbus-led consortium won a 200 million euro deal for coastal and maritime surveillance. Total is finalizing terms on a second solar plant. In Kenya, there is an economic opportunity, and it's within the president's strategy in France to look at not just Francophone Africa, but Anglophone Africa too. France, as I said, is the sixth largest investor in Kenya. Macron, I'm from a generation for whom Mandela's victory is one of the best political memories. Station F, which is the world's largest startup incubator, which I visited, speaks to him wanting France to be a startup nation. I attended a function at Sun Culture Kenya where the Foreign Affairs Minister Le Drian was in attendance, and he said Africa's development should be in the hands of African businesses and African youth. The article about Macron giving France back its mojo, and subsequently things took a turn, is linked up as well. Then I was saying Europe remained off balance. The French have always been prone to take to the streets, but Macron has to deal with things with plenty of finesse, which he's done, I think. Moving on, it was great to catch up with the inestimable Remy Maréchal, who's the head for the French government for Sub-Saharan Africa. Now moving on, a High Court bench has ruled that capping of interest rates under Banking Act Section 32B is unconstitutional. However, implementation is suspended for 12 months to allow the regulator to put in place appropriate mechanisms. CIC Insurance reported full-year earnings per share increased 33.33%, total assets up 8.098%, profit before tax up 64%, profit after tax up 30.7%, earnings per share up 33.33%, dividend up 8.33%, cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year 4.3 billion versus 2.87 billion. Curiously, they only made 3 cents in the second half, but that bias has been seen before, first, second half. Looks attractive on a reverse. Nairobi all shares up 10.69% so far this year. NSE 20 is up 1.23% so far this year. Thank you for stopping by. Wishing you a great weekend.